Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. Israel has admitted it. Israel, a cabinet minister in the Israeli government has admitted it on live TV. I'll be talking about that later in this episode, in about a half an hour or so. I'll be getting into new information on the JFK assassination, which is just great. We keep learning how wonderful that was. But before that, I want to talk more about Israel, more about the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And for that, I'm so excited to bring back on the show presidential candidate Claudia De La Cruz. Claudia.
Hi, Lee. How are you?
Hey, I am all right. Certainly better than a lot of people in this world right now. Hanging in there. I feel like we're all, no matter how far away from this horror show you are, we're all dealing with a horrible injury to our souls. It feels like.
We have to. It's devastating to see all the images and to know that we're just seeing a fraction of it all. The experiences that folks are having are devastating to anyone with a sense of humanity. So,
Yeah, I wanted to get your take on this admission from a Israeli cabinet minister. He was on live television. Agriculture Minister Avi Dichter said that they are rolling out the second Nakba. He said this on television. So for those who don't know, most people do, Nakba means catastrophe or various other synonyms. And it's the name given to in 1948 when the Israelis forced out, created a genocide, a cultural genocide against the Palestinians, forced them into refugee camps, stole their land, killed hundreds of thousands. And that is well known as the Nakba. And here you have an upper level figure in the Israeli government saying forthright, this is the second Nakba.
they've become more and more blatant about what their intentions and what their mission is, which is disgusting in so many different ways. This is admitting that, but also admitting that they're intentionally targeting civilians is outrageous. And it's even more outrageous that the international organisms that have been created to quote unquote, protect the life of civilians have not done anything, have not lifted a finger to actually defend the civilians that are being intentionally bombed. I mean, how does self-defense, right? Become bombing hospitals, become bombing children, displacing because it's forceful displacement, telling people to move towards the south and then bombing the south of Gaza. It's they're talking about rolling the next Nakba, but it's a continuation of what's been happening for 75 years. It's not like it's ever stopped. It's been happening. And I think, we should really hone on that this displacement, this level of atrocities, this grotesque, intentional, dehumanizing attacks against Palestinians have been happening for over 7 decades. And we're now seeing it because of the bravery of journalists and people that are taking on the courageous task of putting it out to the world, despite they themselves, risking their lives, risking their lives of their entire families to be able to put those stories out. But they are shameless. They're disgusting Zionists, like that are really, really stubbornly just decided. They're decisively attacking Gaza and the West Bank. I mean, it's a real distorted it's an effort to be able to wipe out Palestinians from their territory, and it's very disgusting.
Yeah, and you mentioned the international organizations that are meant to stop things like this. Even the UN won't even. They've said 60. They've quote unquote lost 60 of their workers in Gaza since this started mainly because those workers are targeted, as are journalists, as are many times hospitals. But they in these statements they won't even say the word Israel. They just say they lost them, like it was a just a thing that fell from the skies and no one knows what happened. They won't say Israel is murdering UN workers.
I mean, it's crazy also. I mean, this is the moment where contradictions are the most uplifted, like the contradictions in the system. One of the reasons why they don't necessarily name Israel is precisely because of the relationship of US empire to the Israel colonial project. Um, the UN, you could look at the 30 years where the UN has taken votes against the blockade on Cuba, for example, and
Yeah.
two main countries to have historically opposed lifting the blockade on Cuba are the United States and Israel. And if you go down the line in terms of what that partnership has meant to the rest of the world, it's meant sanctioning most countries that are trying to build an alternative to U.S. capitalism and U.S. imperialism. It has meant, building alliances where dictators across the globe get trained by the US military and the Israeli forces. It's meant contracts that bring so much money to many different weapons companies and surveillance companies. I mean, it's a business partnership of the United States capitalist and imperialist with the Israeli colonial project. There's a video that has been going around for the past month of Biden speaking in 1986 when he was still in the Senate, where he was saying, if Israel hadn't been created, and I mean, one of the cheapest projects, he was talking about $33 billion or something like that. If it hadn't been created, we would have had to create an Israel anyway.
We would have had to invent it, and you'd think
Yeah,
that it might be something he's ashamed of. He said it again just a year ago or something.
yeah, yeah. And so again, it's you need to see, you know, you get to see in these moments of conflict, of war, of genocide, because this is what it is, where their alliances lie. You see in Congress, the locking up step of Democrats and Republicans to oppose a ceasefire. And a ceasefire is the least that we could demand. A ceasefire is because of the urgency of people who are being killed, who are being murdered by the Israeli regime. And so it's the least that we can demand, because we know that unless, we have a totally liberated Palestine, this can't continue to happen. But when you see the Democrats and the Republicans locking in step, it's telling you what this government, what this administration actually serves, and it seems like they serve Israel more than they do their citizens.
Well, and the votes in Congress speak to what you're saying. I mean, 97-0 to send more, missiles, bombs, and quote unquote aid to Israel. This is perhaps the issue where the government is most out of step with the American people than perhaps any other. I mean, to have them voting 100% for just to continue this genocide, while the American people 65% are want at least a ceasefire. And there's been a big change in some of these numbers. This is for the first time ever. Democrats' sympathies are with the Palestinians more so than with the Israelis. And this is the first time ever, as you can see there. So the dark blue line is Democrats, people that self-identify as Democrats, and they're at -11. This is support of Israel. So -11%, meaning they have more support Palestinians. Independence is still siding with Israel. And then, of course, Republicans is way up for siding with Israel. But I know that may seem, still not great, but that is a huge shift to have one of the largest parties in this country, made up mainly of liberals and neoliberals, siding with Palestinians. Do you feel like this is a major shift? I mean, that we're seeing here?
I think it is a major shift, and I think it's a major shift just generally, massively in the United States. I mean, when you see hundreds of thousands of people from all walks of life take DC like it happened on November 4th. I mean, 300,000 people. And this is in Washington DC alone, because there were hundreds of thousands all across the country, and there were
Yeah.
millions across the world. And this speaks again to the sharpening contradictions that are produced by capitalism and imperialism. things are becoming clearer, I think. And the function of the two-party system is also becoming clear, as it is inherently connected to the support for capitalism and imperialism. And it has nothing to do with supporting or, responding to people's needs. In fact, it neglects people's needs to prioritize war and prioritize financing of war, because it's an investment that they're looking to benefit from. And so I think people are becoming more and more clear, um, that the two-party system is not working for them in their day-to-day life. And how dare the United States government, the United States administration, decide to pass a package of close to $14 billion to continue to fund war, where we are facing a high rate of inflation, where people are facing unemployment, where people are lacking healthcare. I mean, I was reading the other day, that we have one of the highest child mortality rates in decades, in over 20 years, in the wealthiest country. And a lot of it has to do with lack of access to prenatal care. When you have families that have to pay close to 25K a year for childcare. And so you have children, about 2 million children, I think I was reading from the New York Times the other day, that lost childcare. I mean, access to healthcare. I'm sorry. 2 million who lost access to healthcare in the wealthiest country of the world. And they are
Under a Democratic president. Yeah.
under a Democratic president who's pumping billions into war, not only, financing Israel to be able to do the level of atrocities that it's doing against Palestinians, but also financing a war against Russia. And, figuring out ways of engaging in more oppression of Haiti, supporting colonial forces in Africa. Like, people are waking up to the fact that the United States, again, when it comes to its government and it comes to its administration, it responds to capital and capitalism. It responds to Wall Street, to the bankers, to the corporations.
Yeah, I want to ask you. You've correctly and beautifully brought up how much capital plays a role in the funding of these wars, in the gutting of our infrastructure to send more money to these atrocities, to this genocide, etc. Recently, maybe it was 3-4 days ago, I played the clip on this live stream of you in BlackRock's lobby there in New York City, and you and many others were shutting down BlackRock, blocking the entrance in relation to the genocide that's being perpetrated by Israel. Explain to people the connection between BlackRock, and I imagine we even have some viewers who've never even heard of BlackRock, the connection between BlackRock and this war, this genocide, this horrific atrocity.
I mean, BlackRock, for folks who don't know much about BlackRock, is one of the largest investors, in companies that are profiting from war. It has invested about or over $30 billion to companies like Lockheed Martin, to RTX, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and General Dynamics, which are the big five in terms
Yeah.
of weapons and surveillance technology. And so when we're talking about what happened or went down on November 9th, there was an international call for folks to shut it down for Palestine. By the way, there's going to be another one this Friday, so there's another call, and folks should feel free to go to shut it down for the number Palestine.com. And if you are engaged in an action or want to engage in an action, that's a website where folks are posting. BlackRock, like Citibank, like many other, like Elbit Systems, like many other corporations that actually are housed and headquartered in the United States, profit from war. Although they don't produce weaponry, they invest. They invest heavily in what is the slaughter, the murdering of Palestinian people. BlackRock has also been called out for its role in Congo, DRC, and other places in Africa. And so, again, we're talking about a weapons industry that goes beyond those who produce it, but also those who invest in it. And I think it's important for us to be able to not only look at BlackRock, again, Elevate system. There was a shutdown that happened with the New York Times as well, because we understand that
Right.
as much as all of them have a role that they play in the genocide that's happening in Palestine, and also the levels of violence that happen with U.S. imperialism, and that is why, yeah.
By the way, I just want to let you know the top shareholders in the New York Times,
Oh,
Vanguard and BlackRock,
oh, look at that! See, they're all connected. And
all connected.
do you know who's married to the executive director of the UNICEF?
Of UNICEF, no.
The CEO of BlackRock.
Really? Larry Fink, whose last name literally means detestable person in the dictionary. Literally. But yeah, BlackRock, and you also mentioning the shutdown of the New York Times, which has had some of the worst pro-Israel, pro-war, pro-genocide coverage, as have so many of these mainstream media outlets. And yeah, BlackRock and Vanguard, which are very incestual, they're intertwined. They are the top shareholders, or some of the top shareholders, in just about every large media company, every weapons contractor, every or most big banks, most big oil. And so they are at the center of all this.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously they're at the center and they're also controlling the narrative. They get to control how people receive their media. Like, and this is so important for us to understand how the economic base of society, capitalism, the capitalist system in which we live, dominates, has hegemony over cultural production, over how we engage with the news that is the content that is produced. And I think what is happening now, which is something that has not happened in the many years. I mean, I've been doing organizing work for almost 30 years, and I've been engaged in Palestine, like in work around the freedom of Palestine for a while. And I have never seen the level of material, content, educational videos
Yeah.
that have been put out. And so the actual communication war that Israel and the United States were leading is declining immensely. Like, people are actually utilizing every space to put forth information that is very relevant information and very much counteroffensive to the level of propaganda that Israel and the United States put out. And so they've even been forced in the most corporate media to actually report on
Yeah.
Palestinian numbers when they never did that. The narrative is going to be all messed up. The way in which they frame it is going to, but they've been forced to report on it. And so I think we should see that also as a small victory in our struggle, that people who we would have never thought to come out for the liberation of Palestine are moving from even ceasefire to saying we need the total liberation of Palestine, and that's huge.
Yeah, yeah. In that regard, it's a powerful time to feel this energy of so many people waking up, no matter what our mainstream media is saying, no matter what our government is doing. I'm pretty floored by the number of people that now understand that Israel's an
Mhm.
apartheid state, and that they're committing atrocities right now. I only have a couple of minutes left with you. I wanted to say something about the presidential campaign you're involved in. You are running for president on the PSL party, and I guess this is an exciting time in this regard. I think it's exciting that we actually have at least 3 candidates that are saying free Palestine, that
Mhm.
are on the right side of this and on the right side of history on this. But I was wondering if you could just, and I'm not asking you to throw anyone under the bus, but just say how you're different from, the 3 I'm thinking of are Cornel West, Jill Stein, and yourself. But I know there's others. Obviously, Jill Stein doesn't even have the Green Party nomination yet. But how are you different from other independent or third party candidates?
I mean, I think that the difference is the organization more than anything. Like, I could, sit here and talk about myself, but I think that the fact that we, as an organization, we're able to respond to the moment as quickly as we did, as disciplined as we did, and as organized as we did. In this particular, like after October 7th, we held one of the first marches in support of the Palestinian resistance on October 8th. And that speaks to our political line. Like as an organization that has the level of membership that we have, um, we were able to act quickly. And we were only able to act quickly because we are unified in what our political line is. We want the total liberation for Palestine, and we struggle along the side of our comrades and friends and siblings in Palestine to be able to attain the total liberation of Palestine. And so, as an organization, again, we have conceptual unity, we have discipline, we have structure. And I think that what makes the PSL different from the other presidential candidacies is precisely the fact that we're working towards building an organization that is not there only every 4 years, but an organization that is there every day with working class people in all fronts of struggle. And so, one of the things that we've also attempted to do is to connect, to make the connections about, those people who are harming, who are leading genocide, who are leading this slaughter against the Palestinian people, are the same ones that are doing it with us domestically. We cannot detach the struggle to stop Cap City from the struggle to liberate Palestine. We cannot stop, we cannot disconnect the struggle to free our political prisoners in the United States from the struggle to free the political prisoners in Palestine. I mean, all these different fronts of struggles that we face are in so many ways exemplified and amplified in the struggle for the freedom of Palestine. And so I feel like as a party, the distinction, and as a candidate, as a presidential candidate, the distinction comes from a lifetime of struggle, and it comes from being part of a political organization and a political discipline that is very clearly anti-imperialist, that is very clearly anti-capitalist, and that is very proudly socialist. And so we carry the socialist line, and we carry the socialist heritage, and very boldly, courageously, and fiercely are not afraid to put our positions out, because we're not connected to any instrument that could potentially, we don't negotiate with instruments that will diminish or have us bring down or water down what our politics are. And so
Yeah.
for us, I think that that's it. That we are in the side of struggle and the side of liberation, for all people in the world. Those of us in the belly of the beast, and those that are fighting imperialism and colonialism outside.
Well said, and hope your throat gets better on the campaign trail. I know you've been dealing with that, but thank you so much for all your activism and all your fights, and keep it up.
Thank you so much for having me, Leah. I can't wait to be with you again.
Absolutely.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, there is Claudia De La Cruz. Hope you enjoyed that. And now I'm going to bring you a clip of Cornel West speaking the other day to show you that we do actually have uh, a multitude of awesome voices in this presidential election that are not the completely sold out genocidal Democrats and Republicans. But this is Cornel West. And after this, I'm going to bring you the new information, pretty breathtaking new information on having to do with JFK's assassination. But this is Cornel West speaking the other day in front of a large crowd. And he's speaking with energy. He's speaking with anger. And I would imagine there are some people out there, and in fact, it sunk Howard Dean's campaign all those years ago. But many people may not even remember that. Howard Dean, although he is a neoliberal, bag of shit nowadays, but then, and maybe then too, but then he was kind of the most left wing of the Democrats, which doesn't say much. And he was doing very well. It looked like he was going to win. He was people were touting him a little bit closer to Bernie before Bernie ran, but Bernie was more left wing of him in many ways. But Howard Dean was brought down. His entire campaign was collapsed by one audio recording of him during a campaign. And he's speaking and he's screaming and he yells, "We're going to do it." And Here's the thing, in the actual audio in the room, when it's not just his mic, it sounds perfectly normal. Because when you are I've spoken in front of thousands of people. I've spoken at Occupy without a microphone in front of thousands of people. You are screaming so hard to try and get the message out if you care about what you're talking about. And that is what Cornel West is doing here. Now, I know some people might find the energy that Cornel West has in this clip off-putting, but I think I find it invigorating. This is what someone, if you care about this shit, if you care about a genocide going down right now, then should you not be angry? Should you not be screaming? Should you not be furious? So I think, and Claudia, by the way, has had that same energy at some of the protests she's been at. Anyway, so I just want to explain that that's clearly why Cornel West is animated in this clip. And I want you to hear what he's saying about the Palestinian struggle right now.
Years have been terrorized, traumatized, and hated, and we dish out love warriors and freedom fighters every generation, which means that we stand in solidarity with anybody who's occupied, anybody who's subjugated, anybody who's exploited, and that's why we focus on Gaza at this moment, because a genocidal attack is taking place.
Yeah.
10,000 dead and 4,000 precious children. And don't let anybody tell you that because you love Palestinians and Palestinian babies, that you hate somebody else. It just doesn't follow what our brothers do. We don't hate Jewish brothers. We don't hate Jewish sisters. We don't hate Jewish siblings. We loathe, we hate a vicious Israeli occupation. We loathe and we hate a vicious siege against Gaza. And the least we can do at this moment of overwhelming barbarity is have a ceasefire. And yet you got these cowards in Washington, D.C. talking about a humanitarian pause. Please get off the crack pipe. Wake up. See the humanity of precious Palestinian brothers and sisters. And the American empire has the nerve in this building to veto a humanitarian pause with our precious Palestinian brothers and sisters being bombed. What kind of country are we? What kind of people are we? And we send a message to Palestinian brothers and sisters and siblings in Gaza: you are not forgotten. We see you. We focus on you. We give attention to you. And it doesn't mean that we're not concerned with our indigenous brothers and sisters here. It doesn't. Yeah.
So there you go, Cornel West, speaking it as well as he always does. All right, so I am gonna, as many of you know, if you're regular watchers. By the way, I live stream 4 days a week: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. If you're regulars, if you're my beautiful regulars out there, then you know that about 90% of all these live streams have been devoted to Israel's atrocities that they are perpetrating against Palestine right now. I mean, it's just too important to ignore it, and even to cover other things while climate crisis continues, while the gutting of our infrastructure continues, while these maniacs in our government continue to harm your average citizens. It still seems very tough to ever change the topic away from Israel, Gaza. But I am still trying to bring you important stories, even outside of that, here and there. So I am going to right now bring you an update on one of my passions, because here, and I'll explain why this is one of my passions: the assassination of JFK, the truth behind the assassination of JFK. It is one of my passions because we are living in post-coup America. We are living in a United States that has gone down an alternative future path after being couped by the most horrific individuals within our government. They couped our government. They took out our leadership with an assassination, with a bullet to the head, and we continue to live in that post-coup world. So to me, it is nearly as important today as it was back then. And there's new information on it, which I want to bring to you. It's so important. So I'm going to do that. It'll be at rumble.com/Lee Camp right now, free to watch, as well as my locals page. But rumble.com/Lee Camp. I'll put the link in the description right now. It's not behind a paywall. It's free to watch. Just join me over there. And if you're watching over there, nothing will change. It will be exactly as it is. Just give me 1 second here. If you're watching on locals, nothing will change as well. And we will continue there. So this is new information that has just come out. And I'm not going to spend I'm going to try and get through this. It's a bunch of information, but it's a great article. And I am also amazed at the number of people in the mainstream now that are talking about the fact that our own government, or at minimum, they're